I was hoping you guys would see the beautiful landscape that we're protecting and preserving with, all the ruminants behind me. Is that better?
Better. Yeah. Or maybe if you just lifted your computer screen up. There you go.
How's that?
Okay. Much
I look
better.
angelic though. I feel like I've got like this Milton Mindy thing going on with this.
You do.
Mork,
Move over.
come in, Orson. Is that better?
I'm going to send you a quick text message.
Good afternoon, Miss Caskies. Are you really plural? Okay. I was like, wait.
I'm only one.
It's like Dear Hammer. Are there one M's or two? And if there's only one, then can we just use the name that way through the whole packet?
Right.
Did I not?
If you do a search, you will find both Dear Hammer and Dear Hammer.
In my memo and reso?
In the packet, there's multiple spellings of the applicant's name. I did not include that in my nitpick memo. Come on, you have to admit, it's cool. Thank you for the update from the assessor. Thank you. And John McBride says hello to everyone. He asked me how much I weigh and whether, and I was thinking about lying because I knew there was an over under in terms of what he could get off the ground in Old Snowmass with. And I might have lied. I told him 203, 205, and he didn't look like he was ready to put me in the plane. So we shall see.
You look a lot thinner.
I feel really good. I don't know if I lied to him or not. I was like, I think, it's kind of like your driver's license. It says I'm like 6'1.5", but my hair color is now BAL. Does anyone else have BAL for their hair color?
My husband.
Yeah, is it BAL? I was so proud when they changed it. I was really proud. I was like, that's awesome.
Okay, I found one Deer Hammer with 2 M's in the reso.
Woodruff, you get 2 calendars.
Always on it.
It's anyone that trusts their spelling to either Jeff Bezos or their shopping to Jeff Bezos should be shocked. And Suzanne, this is my first time of the day not wearing orange. So I was not shot today by anyone spending $600 on an elk license or $2,000 on a sheep license. Wear orange.
The same paragraph that I copied from the memo to the reso.
Yeah.
Has 2 M's. But that's it.
All right.
So technically it's only 1.
It's still a misspelling of the applicant's name. Let's just leave it at that. You're on mute now for some reason.
Bonnie, you asked everybody else to show up 20 minutes early so you can get them connected. Where are they?
Yeah, and I even showed up late. So this is really, there's Patrick.
There's PSR.
But we're supposed to have Cliff, Chelsea, Monty, and Craybacher for sure. Patrick, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Bonnie. How is
Perfect.
everybody else doing?
Good. We can see and hear you, so that's always a plus.
That's always well, I don't know if it's a plus, but it's probably required, right? No laughter from the peanut gallery, huh?
I
Leslie.
was silently laughing, muted.
Oh, and we have some taking them outside. I love that.
Hey, Monty.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yep, we can see and hear you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, what a beautiful evening, eh? Hey, Jeffrey.
Monty, good evening. Your sky is bluer than mine.
I purposely had the universe for me. It's better to look at the sky than me.
It's not that dark cloud over your head,
If
is
I
it?
could
Joe?
turn over a little bit, you'd have a shot of the river. That would be even better.
Are you at Towel Creek?
No, I'm on Waterstone, over in Woody Creek. But I've been down there a bunch.
I've seen some truck activity in my neighborhood. I figured that was you.
No, I just been having my place, but you have to stop by.
I'll definitely drop down. So the good news is we're now 9 people, and that means just more people that don't show up. So
Bonnie, did you see this email from Joe Kraybacher?
Yeah, I'm resending him right now. So I thought I'll just go ahead and I'll re-hit everybody else that hasn't joined.
do we have our new commissioner who just was appointed? Is he going to make his first meeting?
He had gotten a hold of Suzanne today, so I assume he did, or will be, but he never responded back to me.
Patrick, thanks so much for your patience in this application. We appreciate the fact that we asked for an extra 2 weeks and not to hold this during the high holidays. So thank you for.
Only too happy to comply. No problem, Joe.
Yeah.
Just give me 2 more weeks to do something else, you know?
Yeah. So how about those leaves?
The leaves,
That was a joke. I was like, it was a filler.
they're pretty. I like them.
So
It turned into fall overnight, literally. Isn't today the first day of fall?
You're not now. I know we have Suzanne now, but she's not exactly, you don't exactly help in terms of quorum, Suzanne.
Why don't I help in terms of, oh, are you
No,
talking?
sorry, other, real Suzanne.
Oh, I am the real Suzanne.
You're new Suzanne, she's old Suzanne.
No, I'm older than that Suzanne. Never mind.
Sorry, staff doesn't count towards quorum. Is that easier?
Yeah, that is.
Suzanne Wolf is still in executive session with the BOCC.
Who's still in?
I'm here now.
Oh, I didn't see you.
We hear you.
I see you.
So Bonnie, maybe you can help. I know we were expecting Joe and who else?
We were expecting Joe,
Cliff
Cliff,
and Chelsea.
Chelsea, and I believe the new gentleman, but I'm gonna go ahead and send everybody just the general link and telling them to contact me if I need to upgrade them from panelists, so, or upgrade them to a panelist. Right now, I don't have anybody else on, so. And I just resent out their links again.
Patrick, are we waiting for anyone else on your team?
Nope, we're all here.
Cool. Damn land use attorneys can't even show up to meetings on time.
Yeah, but who's going to say something to Joe? He's bigger than everybody.
Well, that's why I said it before I got on the call.
So I just resent out the invites and resent out just the general log in, see if anybody's having issues.
Yeah, it looks like Joe was looking for the link at 4:59. So if you resent it, you should jump on.
So Patrick, as an apology, community development would like to send you a Burko calendar. We apologize for your time and for the 4 minutes of your life that we've just cost you. You will get a Burko calendar.
You know, since I no longer work for Howie and Nora, I don't get a Burko calendar anymore. So I've had a gaping hole in my life. So that would be lovely.
We will get you a Burko calendar. There's no conflict of interest. It's a calendar.
I thought you were about to say a bottle of Irish whiskey or something, and I was starting to get excited, but I'll take a calendar. That'd be lovely.
The only thing within my remit I could potentially give away is a Burko calendar. Those are all of the convivial gifts that we have in community development. Maybe $100 for Pitkin County landfill.
About one of those plastic cups.
You'll have to speak with Suzanne, above my pay grade.
Suzanne Caskey, you'll find this humorous. I was supposed to read at Mass last week, and I forgot.
Oh, no.
I'm just absolutely, completely mortified that I did that. It's never happened to me, and so I emailed Father and I said, I'm so sorry that this has happened.
Yeah.
And guess what? He responded back that he likes Scotch. So I guess I have to get our parish priest a bottle of Scotch.
I can't remember who read.
I think Jason and Julia covered for me.
Oh. Is that
It was
10
at the
o'clock?
10, yeah.
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah, you guys usually go to the 7:30, right?
We do. Yes, we do. In fact, I just went in a minute ago to tell John that we were all sitting here tapping our fingers, waiting for a quorum, and ask him if he wanted to come and say hello. But I'm going to take you to say hello to him.
Okay. Well, I thought you were going to see if he could join as a commissioner.
Maybe he will. Or you can tell him that you like Scotch. Or no, that was somebody else.
Suzanne, we do have Joe Kraybacher, but unfortunately, given we are now a 9-person committee,
Yeah.
We require one more individual and/or a cat
Okay.
for our 5th-person quorum. But we like the tour. Joe Kraybacher, thank you.
Well, can we get John Keller? He knows a thing or two about land.
He just told me that he missed the reading he was supposed to.
Hey, John,
Patrick,
how's it going, sir?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
Yeah, I just told Suzanne that I was scheduled to read at 10 o'clock last week and I missed it. And as my penance, Father gave me a bottle of Scotch for him, not for me, for him.
All right. Yeah, all right. Well, I think that's a decent penance.
It's not bad. I've had worse, certainly.
Absolutely. Oh, that sounds good. Well, I never did get out to the Bombay bar.
Bob's away. Okay. Well, next time.
I went all the way out to the West Mesa and climbed one of the volcanoes out there.
Oh.
So that was, what I did over the weekend. Played golf a couple of times and saw my brothers, and so that was had a good time in Albuquerque.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're back safe.
Well, we'll get to the Bombay bar though. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Thanks, Patrick. See you later.
Yeah, John.
So Patrick, does this mean that you're going to skip the reading the next time to forget it again?
Then I get 2 bottles, right? We could get together and drink them both.
So it is 5:08 p.m. Mr. Cliff Weiss has joined us.
Jeffrey, Chelsea is joining here in a few seconds, and also Matthews. So just so you know.
Joe Kraybacher's been on.
I don't know who Matthew is.
You hear me?
Zach.
Jeffrey Matthews.
I'm sorry.
Zach Matthews.
Zach.
Okay, sorry.
Joe Kraybacher's been on too.
So we have a quorum. It's 5:09 p.m. Bonnie, you ready to go?
Hey guys, I apologize. I'm late. This is Chelsea.
We're good to go.
Good evening. It is 5:09 p.m. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of Pitkin County, Colorado. It's Tuesday, September 21st. We apologize for our tardiness at 5:09 p.m. We do have a quorum. Present are Cliff Weiss, Chelsea Ray Clark, Joe Kraybacher, Suzanne Caskey, Monty Thompson, and myself, Jeffrey Woodruff. Again, this is the third Tuesday meeting. Thank you to the applicant again for continuing this for 2 weeks from the first Tuesday to the third. This meeting is called to order. We do have a quorum. We're now 9 members, again, having sat Mr. Kassar, Ivan Kassar, 2 months ago, and this is his first meeting, which he is not in attendance for. Comments from commissioners unrelated to this evening's agenda.
I have a comment.
Cliff Weiss.
In looking at this application, it occurred to me that when things are remote like this, in lieu of doing a site visit, it would be nice to have like a drone flyover to give us a better lay of the land and what we're making decisions about. But I just bring that out there.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments unrelated to the Deer Hammer 1M application? Staff comment? Yes.
Jeffrey, the member who was supposed to come today, the new member,
Yeah.
his name is spelled, it looks like Ivan, but he pronounces it Ivan. He's originally from Malta.
Okay. Malta is a rock that we missed during World War II. Sorry, I've been to Malta a few too many times, to tax haven and a rock. Thank you for the correction. For Kassar is right? Okay. Ivan Kassar from The Rock. Any other commissioner comments unrelated to the Deer Hammer application? Staff comments unrelated to the Deer Hammer application? Suzanne.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah, I'm sorry Yvonne's not here. He did contact me and I know was trying to get the information. He had definitely planned to participate 2 weeks ago and I knew he was going to be out of town, but was still planning to join remotely. But I think he may be somewhere where there's sketchy internet and that may have been the issue to join tonight. But he has been in contact with us. So hopefully for the next meeting. And just quickly on that, for the 5th of October, we do have a special district request that we need to bring to you. When those come to the BOCC and the clerk, there's a very tight time frame under state statute for that to be for the P&Z to make a recommendation and then for that to go in front of the BOCC. So we plan to bring it to you on the 5th and then it will be in front of the BOCC on the 13th. And I think that just showed up about 10 days ago. So like I said, the time frame's very tight under statute. Cindy and Ellen will take the opportunity, since you all are gathering on the 5th, to give you an update on their work on various master plans. So those will be the items for you on the 5th. I think that's it.
Excellent. Bonnie or Leslie Lamont, anything unrelated to the Deer Hammer application?
Nothing.
Excellent. This is a public meeting. Any, even though the notice said it went out September 20th, I'm assuming it didn't go out on September 20th, but that's what the packet reads as. Any public comments unrelated to this evening's Deer Hammer application?
So Jeffrey, can I just jump in on your comment about the agenda? This is not a noticed public hearing for the P&Z. It's just, it is a public meeting. And the requirement there is to post the agenda 24 hours prior. Technically, the posting is no longer even physical. It's actually putting it on the website.
Okay.
But anyway, just so you know that we just want you to know that everything's correct.
So we met the requirements for this, for the
Yes.
notice period for this meeting. Thank you. Let's adjourn. So we have one item this evening. It is a land use action. It is the Deer Hammer rezoning. It is the special review for limited development conservation parcel, activity envelope, and site plan review. Leslie Lamont for staff, and again, Patrick Raleigh for Stan Clausen's office. I did disclose to the assistant county attorney that I currently have a case pending with Stan Clausen's office, which is unrelated to Deer Hammer, that is in the city of Aspen. I have no financial entanglement with Stan Clausen or his office. I'm paid by the applicant for the historic preservation work, and again, have no financial relationship with Stan Clausen or Patrick Raleigh. So I'm going to turn it over to Leslie Lamont.
Great. Thanks, Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. Jeffrey did a great job introducing the project, and that Patrick is on the line to give you a more in-depth review of the application. I'm going to give you kind of an overview, and I'm going to share my screen with you all.
And I'm sure you have drone footage.
I think that's a great suggestion. And I'm sorry that I didn't think about it, because we have a really awesome drone team in the county. So thank you, Cliff, for bringing that up. And I will endeavor to think ahead about that. It takes a lot of work to do these drone flights, but it's an important tool that we should use. So thank you for making that suggestion. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, great. So Mr. Deerhammer owns roughly 167 acres adjacent to the Frying Pan River, just past Meredith. His property is accessed off of Lime Creek Road. So here is Meredith, Frying Pan Road, and then Lime Creek Road dives off of the Frying Pan Road somewhere down here. And this is Lime Creek Road. And Mr. Deerhammer's property is all this in blue. And on the property, he has a cabin and a garage that are next to the Frying Pan River. They're within the 100-foot setback of the high water line. And then 3 outbuildings up here that are old structures. All of these structures predate permitting and zoning up in the Frying Pan. Just to give you kind of a sense, again, the 3 outbuildings are up here, and the cabin and the garage is down here. The applicant proposes, currently right now, the majority of the property is zoned AR10. It was zoned in 2000 from a majority of the property was zoned from rural and remote to AFR10. And then when zoning changed again, AFR10 became AR10. There are about 13 acres of property that are currently zoned AR2. And the applicant proposes to rezone this 13 acres to AR10. This is the survey of the property that was submitted with the application. And it's another look at the entire property. Here's Lime Creek Road. So the property across the river is zoned AR2. And that's this property right here that is right off the Frying Pan Road. And that is also zoned AR2. It's this area in here that Mr. Deerhammer seeks to rezone to AR10. And this is a map that just shows you kind of the zoning in the vicinity of the property. This is all rural and remote. As you can see, RS 160. This property here is RS 30. And all of this here along the Frying Pan Road is zoned AR10, AR2. The properties that are zoned AR2 on this side of the Frying Pan, they range in size from half an acre to 2 acres. Again, Mr. Deerhammer owns roughly 167 acres in total. As an incentive for, the code provides an incentive that if one is zoned AR10 and has 160 or more acres, then one can apply for a special review for a limited development conservation parcel. And that gives the property owner the ability to create TDRs. So this application before you is to rezone the property to AR10, special review, not special use review, but special review to take the AR10 property and create a limited development conservation parcel to create TDRs. And this property would then be eligible, given the size of the property, will be eligible for 2 TDRs. Because there is an existing dwelling unit on the property, you deduct 70 acres out of the 160 acres, because the applicant is also willing to limit the size of the house to 3,250 square feet. So the size of the property is 160 acres. You deduct 70 because there's an existing dwelling on the property, and then he gets 2 TDRs because of the size of the property. The applicant is also willing to limit the size of the house to 3,250 square feet, which gives him the ability for a 3rd TDR. All these TDRs would be severed from the property and used on eligible receiver sites in Pitkin County. I just want to show you, again, this is where the existing dwelling unit is, the cabin down here. The cabin and the garage total 960 square feet. This zone district creating a limited development conservation parcel also requires, if there's development on the property, to go through activity envelope review and site plan review. At this point in time, the applicant's not proposing any changes to the existing development on the property. So activity envelope and site plan is crafting an activity envelope around the existing development on the property to establish that activity envelope. If there's any future development that's proposed on the property, then that would trigger a site plan review, and we would look at what that development entails. But for example, this area here is within the 100-foot setback of the high water mark. So our legal non-conforming section of the code would come into play if one wanted to expand the size of the cabin. The applicant, as I said earlier, is limiting the ultimate square footage of the property of the principal residence. I'm sorry, the code says principal structure to 3,250 square feet. But again, our non-conforming section of the code would kick in for any proposal that was within the 100-foot setback of the river. So at this point in time, this is a P&Z review with a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And as Suzanne said earlier, the public notice, public hearing will occur at the BOCC. So I've prepared a resolution that's attached to your memo. And in that resolution, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning. Staff is recommending special review approval for the limited development conservation parcel, which is kind of a mouthful to say multiple times. And also recommending activity envelope. However, my conditions of approval recommend some revisions to the activity envelope as was proposed in our application. So I also have, just for clarification, when we get into any questions from the P&Z, I have the language from the code here, as well as the language of the floor area limitation as was recommended by the Frying Pan Master Plan, which is now part of the code that discusses floor area limitation. So I will stop sharing my screen and entertain any questions that the P&Z has, or turn it over to Patrick.
Questions for staff, or do you want to table till Patrick's presentation? Seeing no hands, Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Leslie. Leslie, you did such a good job that sometimes I don't know if I need to present. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So Cliff, to answer your question, I actually do have some images here of the site. So hopefully that gives you at least a inkling of the character of the property. I think it does capture quite a lot, and there's maybe a little bit more complexity to the property, but I think the most pertinent views are what you're seeing up on your screen, and we'll use these views moving through. So hopefully that answers some of the questions of the character. But I think a drone flyover is a good idea. So as Leslie went over, I'll do this briefly since you just heard it, but it's always helpful to hear it twice. It's a 167.528 acre parcel on the banks of Lime Creek and the Frying Pan River. That is based off a brand new survey that we had recently completed. So that is a verifiable 167 plus acres. The Deerhammer family has actually owned and continually lived on this property, worked it as well for many years, I believe 1952. Oh, and I should also point out, for the record, my name is Patrick Raleigh, Stan Clausen Associates. I am joined in the room by Stan Deerhammer. He's with me and available if we need to refer to any questions to him. But I will be doing the presentation, so you can direct all questions to me. So the Deerhammer family has lived and worked the property for many years. 1952, I believe, is what Stan has told me. His father has run cattle on it, and Stan has really grown up on the property. So it's been in the family, and he hopes to keep it that way. As Leslie pointed out, the 13 acres of the property that are zoned AR2, we need to rezone to AR10 to allow for that limited development conservation parcel. It is a mouthful, Leslie, to say. But with that rezoning, we would be over the 160 acre threshold. So then as a limited development conservation parcel, as Leslie just pointed out, 3 TDRs are being requested. 2 come from the acreage of the site, and I'll go over the math of how these TDRs are created, and 1 from that voluntary reduction on the future house size to 3250, even though no development is currently proposed with this land use application. And then finally, we provide a activity envelope around the existing development, and we have modified that to meet some of staff's conditions, and I'll review that later in the presentation. And then also just to capture the existing site conditions through a site plan approval. So as I just said, no new development is proposed at this time, though the land use code does provide through the limited development conservation parcel the creation of 1 residence. So that is something that is part and parcel of the code. that would be limited to 3250. So the conservation easement, which will be over the rest of the property beyond the activity envelope, will be administered by the Pickens County Open Space and Trails. And we have had a meeting with the Open Space and Trails where we, I believe, received a unanimous recommendation of approval or acceptance of the concept of this conservation easement. And in that discussion with OST, you know, the scenic and rural character that is being preserved by this conservation easement really was the important factor for them. And I think it really is the important factor for you to consider today, is that in exchange for the granting of the TDR is that the community really gets a wonderful piece of conservation in a highly visible location. And then finally, Mr. Deerhammer has agreed to provide a fishing easement on Lime Creek. It's very good fishing up there. Please don't tell too many people, but it is good fishing. And we looked at both the Frying Pan and Lime Creek, and because of site characteristics, which you'll see in a moment, it was decided that Lime Creek was likely the best candidate for a fishing easement, and Mr. Deerhammer is only too happy to provide one. So there, as Leslie also pointed out, is the existing conditions. You have Root Eye Reservoir to the left, Thomasville, which is the subject property is directly above Thomasville. You can see where Lime Creek Road, or also known as the Eagle Thomasville Road, enters, and that is the access to the property. We'll review that in a second. And then, of course, if you continued, you eventually would get to Hagerman Pass. So here is the, here is the property, 167.52 acres. This is the new survey that we had done. You can see the boundary that has of the property. Some of the areas, this area in particular is known as the Lime Creek Colony. Mr. Deerhammer's father created this. Those are wholly owned individual properties that are not part of the Deerhammer parcel. So here is that access road that winds its way up to the top of the hill to a point where there's a private access road that traverses the slope. This is a sagebrush slope that descends down to the existing structures. So there is Lime Creek that kind of tickles the eastern side of the property. This area up in the kind of the eastern northeastern portion of the property is heavily forested. It's spruce. Then there's the areas of sagebrush flats, and also then the riparian areas that follow the rivers. There's the Frying Pan River, and you can see how the Frying Pan River, it's difficult to access from the property. It has actually really better access from the Frying Pan Road. So that's why we concentrated on Lime Creek for a fishing easement. There's that 154 acres that is zoned AR10. As Leslie pointed out, the 13 acres that is AR2. And this is the location of the existing structures. So I'll zoom in on that. And Leslie, a slight clarification: when we were sharing numbers, the cabin itself is 875 square feet. And then immediately adjacent to that is a hoop style garage, which is approximately 960 feet. So just a small clarification that those two structures exist, and they're individual and should be appreciated as such. Whoops. So then these are the inhabitable outbuildings with those respective sizes provided. It should be really pointed out that these are historic structures that were relocated from Old Meredith at the time of the creation of the reservoir to the property by Mr. Deerhammer's father. They're used as storage. They have no services. They really are not habitable in any form or fashion. So Cliff, to your point, here is the view to the northwest, and I kind of indicate a general location with this arrow. But the hillside that is in question, this is the sagebrush flats that are largely above the existing structures that we just reviewed. The existing structures are tucked down here into the spruce trees and the the elderbrush down by the river, so you can't see them too well. This next image is a little bit further down the road, kind of in the heart of Thomasville proper, looking to the north again. And here you can see the hillside that is roughly directly above Mr. Deerhammer's existing structures. So you can kind of get a sense of the character and the visibility of the site from Frying Pan Road. And then finally, we move down. Now this is kind of turning back, looking towards the east. Sorry, my mouse is advancing my slides. Looking back towards the east, and again, you can see this rather large expanse of openness, and actually some of the property even extends back to this back hill on the other side of Lime Creek. Lime Creek following the drainage here that's created by this ridge line. But essentially, this is the main chunk of land that is right above the residence, and I think is the most important to consider when you weigh the conservation value of this property. So the requested reviews, we have to rezone the property, as Leslie said, from AR2 to AR10 to meet that 160 acre threshold and the zoning that is required for the limited development conservation parcel. As Leslie also pointed out, the area on the other side of the river is, I would argue, appropriately zoned AR2 because of the size and the density of those structures. There's the conditions on Mr. Deerhammer's side of the property is completely different, as you'll see by this zoomed in image with an aerial. So the river splitting here, this is Mr. Deerhammer's property. This is again just the corner of it, but you can see the level of activity that is occurring in Thomasville, which is appropriate for an AR2 zone district. But on the other side of the river, it's completely undeveloped with only Mr. Deerhammer's cabin right here and those outbuildings located up there. So you can see the access road. So the rezoning of the property really is much more consistent with the adjacent land use patterns. So the rezoning will support the greater conformity with the county master plan, which always seeks to preserve the rural and open nature of the county. And it also, by the way, will support the caucus master plan, which has specifically stated people should go out, owners should go out and seek conservation easements and the creation of TDRs to protect their lands. And I think this is a great example of that program, and also of how a limited development conservation parcel will work and the value that is granted, given to the community by preserving this large area of land that is highly visible. So that's the key right there. This is the most important thing, is that it'll help maintain this view. This is a view that we've come to know and love while driving through Thomasville, and successful completion of this application will ensure that that hillside remains open for future generations. So now the creation of the limited development conservation parcel, that is the entire 167.52 acres. This is made possible through, this would ensure that this area remains open through conservation, and the character is preserved through the creation of TDRs, which removes the development rights. So while the property could conceivably receive some development, and it would be likely on those very visible portions of the sagebrush flats there close to the river, that ability is removed through the approval of the limited development conservation parcel and the creation of TDRs. So the creation of a LDCP does not conflict with the land use code, as Leslie has pointed out in our staff memo. We meet all of the applicable code requirements. This maintains the health, safety, and welfare of the community. I would say it really provides a great deal for the health, safety, and welfare of the community by providing large areas of open space that will remain open in perpetuity, and also providing some protection from development pressures for the folks down in Thomasville. This, as I just said, complements the adjacent land uses because it does protect Thomasville and removes that development pressure. And as I've previously said, it also supports the caucus master plan, which urges people, property owners, to go out and seek this very type of activity so that their properties can be remained open and with the scenic qualities intact. It's consistent with the zoning of AR10 once we rezone the entire property. This is provided for, and LDCP is provided for in the AR10 zone district. And finally, adequate facilities do exist, as we have no development plans right now. The existing conditions will remain unchanged, and they have been shown to operate just nicely. And so there will be no pressure on facilities. So the next level is the creation of the TDRs by the fact of the LDCP. Oops. As we've stated, kind of the threshold is 160 acres. With the rezoning of this portion from AR10, we will have more than 160 acres, so we'll meet that requirement. And concerning the activity envelope, now again, I'm zooming into the corner of the parcel. So here is the existing cabin and garage and those outbuildings. The blue, the large kind of panhandle shape, is the activity envelope that I proposed in the land use application. Primarily to capture the access drive and, provide for activities down here where existing activities are present. But as Leslie has pointed out correctly, we do have a 100-foot setback that would be undevelopable from the Frying Pan River. And there also may need to be some work with staff in delineating the activity envelope to avoid areas of 30% slope or more. The applicant is completely fine with doing that. So kind of this darker color still provides for the access road. It captures the existing outbuildings, but then has its own little frying pan down to the existing house with the connecting roadway. So we're more than happy to work with staff in fine tuning that activity envelope that will contain the development. So here's the kind of the convoluted math of the creation of the TDRs. So from there's a 70-acre deduction that is required when a property has an existing residence, as this one does. So 167.528 minus 70 gets you the 97.528. Of course, we know the TDRs are created based on 35 acres. So dividing the 97.52 by 35, you get 2.7. We also know that fractions of TDRs aren't created or aren't allowed. So that provides for the 2 TDRs that are generated from the acreage. And as Leslie has pointed out, the Mr. Deerhammer is limiting the floor area for the future development that is provided for by the code down to 3,250. So for that 2,500 square feet that we are foregoing, we get an additional TDR. So that's where you arrive at the 3 TDRs. I'm sorry, my mouse is really sensitive. Then finally, I mentioned about the fishing easement, and there it is on Lime Creek. And again, we'll work with Open Space and Trails. We've had some preliminary discussions about the appropriateness of this general location, and we'll do further work to go out and fine tune where the easement goes. And really, it would be a very simple, access point. May or may not have a parking area associated, but it takes people, going on the road will go right by here. So that's a nice place for people to get in, and a nice community benefit for people to enjoy Lime Creek as it crosses Mr. Deerhammer's property. So finally, I think, again, I can't reiterate enough that the main point here is, while all of this other stuff is going on, this is what the community gets. It's the preservation of this really visible hillside that could easily receive, single-family homes up there. And I think that would be diminishing the scenic qualities of the area. And so we're, very happy to answer any questions and go over anything else that may not have been clear. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Questions for staff or Patrick or the applicant?
I have a question for Patrick.
Cliff.
It's Cliff. Patrick, you mentioned the colony. Is my maps print out pretty small. Even on my screen, they're small. Is it that sort of chunk on the right side of the map that's?
Yeah, let me get to that real quick, Cliff. Now I gotta share my screen. There we go. There we go. Can you see it?
Yeah,
So
that
this
chunk
is
there,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, this is the chunk of the Lime Creek colony, and if you zoom in a little bit, you can actually see some of the cabins that are present on there.
And what year was that transferred? And you mentioned that it was spun off from the overall property. When was that done?
So Mr. Deerhammer reports it was about in the mid 60s.
Oh,
And Cliff, just to jump in. Oh, sorry, I was just going to clarify too for Cliff that, right, done in the 60s means it predates county
Yeah.
subdivision review. So yeah, just want to be, and it's a number of very small parcels.
Yeah, they're
I have
very
that
small
knowledge.
with a very small cabin associated with them.
is it zoned now? Is
I
there
believe
an
it's zoned
overlay?
RS20, isn't it?
Okay.
It's currently zoned AR10.
Oh, AR10, okay.
Can you see this little Lime Creek colony from the road that you photographed and showed us, Patrick?
No, you really can't. It's tucked into, because as the hill, as you're climbing out of Frying Pan Road, and again, here's where that fishing easement will be. This is, this is a ridge line right here,
Mhm.
which you could see in those images. And then that image, the ridge line in the back was over here. So you're in a rather deep valley canyon, and they really are not visible at all until you're right on top of them.
Got it. Yeah, I'm looking at it on my little satellite, and I don't. It looks like it's downhill, but I don't have a topo map, so that makes sense. By the way, nice to see you, Patrick, and that was a very informative presentation. Your technology is
Chelsea.
helpful for laying it out, because I've been back there a few times, but now I'm oriented properly. So
You will never appreciate the stuff until somebody points this stuff out. I know that's the way I am. So it's good to see you, Chelsea.
you as well, and both you and Leslie's presentations were very informative. So thank you.
Questions for Patrick or Leslie? I see Jeffrey Woodruff has his hand raised. Any other commissioner questions or comments? So Leslie and Patrick, I'm going to divide my questions in two parts, because to me, you're trying to establish that you have 160 acres is one part of the application in order to get your 2 TDRs. And then you're trying to establish a diminution in building size or square footage, which is the additional one. And so on page 41 of the application, it lists the square footages of the Deerhammer parcel as 148.21. And that was, that's Pitkin County GIS. The way TDRs work, the lot as of the 6th of December 2006 had to be 160 acres. And so the way I read both Pitkin County GIS and then the square footage numbers we've seen over time from this lot, ranging from 148 to 167, the applicant, and again, I appreciate the fact that this is a conservation proposal. We should be saying, awesome, let's conserve this parcel, but it doesn't appear that you meet the TDR requirements, which would be the first two, which is you're not zoned AR10, you're not 160 acres, you look like you're 148, even as per your own application. And, even if the survey date was February, then how come Pitkin County's assessor's office is still reflecting the old number? So that's sort of one question, which is, it doesn't feel like the application meets the granting of TDR, 2 TDRs and the 160 acres based on what's in this packet, or based on the series of, what's gone on with the BOCC. And then the second would be, given note 11, the client is only decreasing their primary residence by 750 square feet, which would mean you're not eligible for a TDR. You're not decreasing house size by 2,500. This is the frying pan. You have a potential of a 4,000 square foot house, and you're only decreasing it by 750 square feet to 3,250. So it doesn't, again, I love that we're getting applications that are about protecting and reducing growth. And I buy into the arguments, but it doesn't, I don't believe, according to the land use code, that you meet the requirements for the 160 acres, nor for the diminution from 5,750 to 3,250. I don't buy that you're decreasing development by 2,500 square feet because you're in the frying pan and you've already been, tied by note 11. So 2 questions, very long-winded, sorry, but would love your thoughts on both.
You would like my thoughts first? Okay, well, as far as the acreage is concerned, GIS is notoriously not survey accurate, as I've experienced multiple times today in erroneous locations of property lines. And it's just simply, that's not the level of detail that GIS can provide us. The 167.52 acres was very, very carefully mapped by a land surveyor. We have a stamped survey in front of you, and he has verified that the property does in fact contain 167.52 acres. So, I think that is the best piece of information that we can go on. And I would say that we clearly meet the 160 acre threshold if we are allowed to rezone. And that's your second question, is the rezoning. And I hesitated to call this a mapping error on the zoning, because who knows really what went into the delineation of the AR2 and the AR10. Did people, perform a site visit? We don't know. But I think it's clear, as I illustrated, that the zoning is appropriate on the other side of the river from Mr. Deerhammer's property, that is zoned AR2 with its dense, neighborhood-esque development that you appreciate when you go through Thomasville. And that the other side of the river is contiguous to the remainder part of the AR10. And in fact, it is integral to the remainder of the property, because that is where the primary residence is located. So I think the rezoning is an appropriate correction, if you want to call it that. I hesitated to call it an error, but correcting something that I think is more appropriate, that it's supported by staff. Staff has seen the value in correcting the zoning. So I think on both your zoning comment and the acreage comment, I think we have an answer for that.
So you've notified the assessor that the parcel should be listed as 167.528 acres as per the February.
We have not, but we would be happy to do that if it were appropriate and requested by staff, as we have a stamped survey that I know was very carefully done. So I am more than willing to stand on the survey that you have in front of you.
Because again, it's just sort of odd that all of the times this lot has come in front of the BOCC, the lot's changed multiple times in square footage. So there's another, the 2001 BOCC recitals puts the parcel size at 145.42 acres.
I'll chime in here just because I see it as a really minor detail, because I run into problems with assessor records all the time in almost every single county. So it's not unusual for the GIS mapping program to get it wrong. And it's very not unusual for the assessor to be inaccurate, give or take an acre or two on something that's that large. So I don't see that as an issue. And I think it's clever that Patrick's come up with the scheme of putting the AR2 parcel that is contiguous in the AR10 zoning designation to make it all the same zoning. And I also think there's enough room there with 167 that it meets the land use requirement and according to the code. So I'm okay with it.
Patrick, do you want to touch on note 11 as well?
I think Suzanne had a comment.
Sorry, Leslie raised her hand
Sorry,
Oh,
virtually.
there it is.
And I did, but no, I mean, I think I was just going to jump in and say, Jeffrey, I think our position is that the parcel is, as always, represented. The boundaries of the parcel have not changed through all of those various zoning changes. I think what we have now is an actual accurate survey to tell us the size of the property, which we apparently, we did not have that in the past with the other actions. So again, I think the point with that code provision is, has the parcel been subdivided since that time, or has it changed in some manner? The parcel itself has not. And again, now we have a more accurate number to associate with it.
Leslie, I just thought you wanted a high five, so I'll give you a virtual high five there. And to close the point on that, I mean, I know the work that the surveyor has gone through in locating these old monuments, which are fascinating to me. They're sometimes, a rock scrawled with, a scratch on them and things like that. So very assiduously went out and located these property corners. So yeah, it is as it's always been. And this is now probably the first time that an accurate survey has been made with modern technology. Concerning your note 11, understood that house size is limited. The 3250 is something straight out of the code. The primary concern of Mr. Deerhammer is to conserve this property and to have the ability to create the TDRs from this. We have no desire or inkling of future development. It's just simply something that's simply provided for in the land use code that is there. So if the P&Z would like to, entertain something that would reduce the maximum house size for any future development to take into account map 11 or note 11, Mr. Deerhammer would be amenable to that.
But I guess my question, Patrick, was that the issuance of a TDR for reduction in square footage is a reduction of 2,500 square feet, but you're only proposing a reduction of 750 square feet in this application. That was, and so my question, you're going from 4,000 square feet, which is what the upper frying pan note 11 says, to 3,250. You're not going from 5,750 GMQS exemption, Pitkin County, to 3,250. And so to me, it was like, well, does that really still generate a TDR when all you've done is you're still going to have close to 9,000 square feet of development, 3,680 for existing cabins, 3,250 for new, 1,000 square foot for a CDU, 750 additional, if you go ag. So you're close to 9,000 square feet. Why are we issuing you a TDR for a reduction in square footage when again, you're only, taking 750 off the table? It doesn't mean doesn't feel like you're meeting the land use code as per note 11.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding. Leslie, if you could clarify maybe from Jeffrey what he's trying to get at. I don't understand the 9,000 square feet of available floor area.
So I guess my specific question for you, Patrick, and for Leslie is the frying pan caucus has note 11 in the land use code, which says the primary structure max is 4,000 square feet.
Plus
1,750.
Plus 1,500 that can be used for accessory structures, correct?
Plus 1,750. So note 11, and maybe we just bring that back up on the screen. And so my question for staff and the applicant is, this is really only reduction in house size by 750 square feet. So why is that eligible for a TDR?
Patrick, do you want to stop sharing your screen and I can pull that line up?
Thank you. Sorry.
So for everybody on this meeting, this is the language that Jeffrey is referring to. So this is this language came out of the Frying Pan Master Plan. It's now part of the Land Use Code. And the final maximum floor area of 5,750. But the gross floor area for the principal structure is 4,000. And you get an additional 1,750 for accessory structures. The code for the TDR allows you, right here, if the applicant chooses to limit the floor area, they limit it to 3,250 for a reduction below the 5,750. So the way that I have structured the language in the reso, let me go back. One point is when you deed restrict the property against future development, you are allowed ag buildings per the exemption in the code, and you are allowed one caretaker dwelling unit. So if you see the way I've structured the language in the resolution for you, we tried to blend the limitation of the Frying Pan Master Plan with the limitation of getting the TDR of 3,250. And because the limitation of the Frying Pan overlay is limited to the principal structure, the principal structure, meaning the home, one would assume, right? Is
850 square foot cabin.
right. So you have an 850 square foot cabin that you are voluntarily limiting to 3,250. The Frying Pan overlay says your principal structure can't be more than 4,000 square feet. So you're basically leaving 750 square feet on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But you still can get 1,000 square foot CDU on the property per the TDR provision. And if it's not attached and is accessory, then you can still do your 1,000 square foot for accessory. One of the issues is there's all this square footage existing on the property. So that's why any future development, any addition, any reconstruction, replacement, renovation, remodel has to go through site plan review. And we would look at our legal non-conforming section of the code for replacement, and the TDR limitation, the Frying Pan limitation would all inform that future review. So Jeffrey is correct in that you're really only leaving 750 square feet on the table. You're not leaving 2,500 square feet on the table.
Can I say something?
Suzanne.
I can only applaud this application. I think it meets what the caucus is asking for. And when a caucus is willing to, in this day and age, in this county, when a caucus is willing to limit square footage, then I don't think that we should, this is not the right way to put it, but get picky about what we're getting picky about. Because I think that everything in this application is headed in the direction that we all want to go. It's just refreshing to me to see a 3,000 plus square foot house proposed for future development. I mean, how long has it been since we've seen such a thing? Plus, all that the land that is being conserved. I thank the Deerhammers very much for doing this, and I will vote yes on it.
Additional land use questions for Leslie, Patrick, or Suzanne?
One more question.
Cliff, and then Joe, please.
Jeffrey, you mentioned something near 9,000 worth total development potential. And I realize some of this comes up later in a site review, but I'm a little uncomfortable with the sound of that, not to mention below grade FAR. I think I need to understand how that's calculated.
So I put back up on the screen, can you guys see the where the structures are and the square footages? Cliff?
Yes.
So what's your question? Your question is, how is it calculated?
Yes, I mean, 9,000. In other words, if you're only adding 3,200 to what is this, roughly 4,000? No more, 5,000?
Well,
Looking at
if-
I'm about to add it up right now.
So 3680 would be existing cabins and garages. 3250 would be a new principal structure, potentially removing 960 square feet of the existing. You could still add 1,000 square foot CDU, and an additional 750 feet of square footage would be allowed. So you're bordering 9,000 before an ag exemption. And
Got it.
again, my only point in bringing up square footage was to say, is the reduction, which is only 750 square feet, equal to a TDR? And does the land use code, according to Leslie and or Suzanne, say, yes, we issue a TDR for the reduction of 750 square feet when the code says 2,500? So my estimate is they don't meet the land use code for the reduction in the principal structure as per the land use code, which would look for a reduction of 2,500 square feet. That's my argument.
Got it.
Does anyone need to see the code language again?
It's based on a reduction of 2,500 square feet. So sure, that would be, please, yes.
Which is overall floor area. And Leslie, do you count the outbuildings? I believe you excluded the outbuildings. Is that not correct?
Excluded the outbuildings?
From floor area calculation?
I think it's really principal structure, but again, you could bring up the code.
Well, no, the principal structure, Jeffrey, is limited to 4,000 square feet. Principal
Right.
structure. You
Yeah.
still have the 5,750 of available. You know, we could, you know, I guess I don't quite follow your 9,000 square feet of potential development, because eventually you're going to be capped at 5,750 per node 11. That is a hard line that cannot be exceeded. So then it becomes a question of how do you get to your 5,750? And I guess I don't know if that's your question, but
my question
I have great difficulty following where you're getting this 9,000 as being a germane number.
So we can focus strictly on the diminution in the house size from 4,000 to 3,250 and say, do you meet the land use code for the award of a TDR when you're only reducing your principal structure by 750 square feet, not 2,500 as per the land use code?
But we're also reducing other floor area that is available. I mean, as Leslie has attempted to.
I'll chime in. I follow Patrick's math and Leslie's math, and I agree with their interpretation of the code and how it's written in the resolution. So I appreciate Patrick and Leslie re-explaining it to us, and I agree with them.
Well, the existing square footage on the property is not going away by this development proposal, by this zoning proposal and the TDRs. The existing development is considered legal non-conforming. That's currently on the property. And so if someone were to, they could keep all of that. They could come in for another ag structure, do an ag covenant if there's an ag operation on the property. And they can still do a CDU. And if it's separate and not part of the principal structure, you can do a CDU. But you can do that via the frying pan language anyway. You get 1750 accessory structures. So I guess if one were to propose a redevelopment on the property, and there were still the outbuildings on the property and the garage next to the residence, we would look at this number and see how that number fits in. That's why I said we would look at our legal non-conforming section of the code when someone looks to replace existing square footage they have on their property. We'd look at what the frying pan says, and we'd look at what this TDR limitation is. But the principal structure, one would assume would be the principal residence, would be limited to 3250.
Meeting the caucus note 11
Yes. And below the caucus note 11.
and below, exactly. Yeah.
Suzanne Wolf, did I misspeak on anything on that?
I mean, all I can add, I guess, again, it's the intent clearly was looking at an allowance for someone to keep their existing development and have the right to expand. We haven't done many of these limited development conservation parcels, and we have not done one in the frying pan area. So we haven't overlaid these two provisions together before. So, I mean, I think it's a really good discussion to try and understand, where everybody falls out on those, how those two overlap. We really did look at it as that potential to expand, to have 5750 for a principal residence. Again, that's split under the frying pan overlay. But again, I think we were seeing that, right, they are agreeing to reduce that potential, future potential floor area, which is what the code, is looking for in terms of that additional TDR. But I do see, I understand too, where Jeffrey's coming from as to, well, if they couldn't go over 4,000 for that residence anyway, but they could still have accessory structures. So again, I think we were trying to provide flexibility with the provision because we wanted people to have the opportunity to keep their existing development and have some expansion. But then it's what is it to, I guess, get that, the additional TDR for that floor area reduction? What does that look like? So where we were looking at the overall 5750, taking that down to the 3250 and seeing that that's still consistent with the overlay.
One more question.
I think Joe is next. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Joe?
Yeah. So my question, or at least one is, the 13-acre parcel that's being rezoned to AR2 versus AR10, maybe staff could explain are there any significant differences in those zone districts? I guess would probably be just uses because there's going to be a limitation on square footage. I believe AR2 is an FAR zone district, but presumably with 13 acres is plenty. But in any event, I was just curious why the 13-acre parcel is being rezoned to AR2 versus staying its current AR10 status.
The 13 acres is currently AR2. And they're seeking to rezone it to AR10,
Okay, I had it backwards, sorry about that.
which is consistent with the rest of his property, but the zone districts that give you the ability to seek unlimited development conservation parcel are AR10 and a bunch of other zone districts. AR2 is not one of them. So the whole property needs to be zoned AR10. And then the property is also 160 plus acres. So that's two of the thresholds to get to the conservation.
Got it. The last question, I guess, is the ag buildings. The way I see this, I guess the ag buildings, let's call it the ag buildings, the barn, the house, the existing structures stay. And they are, first of all, I assume that we've confirmed they're non-historic, if that makes a difference. And are they then, because they're existing in addition to this 3250 that we're talking about?
Yeah, and that's Jeffrey's point, is that there's like 8,000 square feet, right? How many on the property currently? They're not ag buildings.
I'm sorry, I don't get the 8,000 square feet or 9,000 square feet.
It's 3680 is 3680.
5670.
What number?
Well, if you take the 3,860 square feet that is in the outbuilding, which are storage buildings, Joe, they're really not a barn. They're just old buildings that have been relocated. Then the 960 square feet of the garage and the 850 square feet approximately of the existing cabin, total under roof area is 5670 if my math stands.
Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
So you're limited to 5750 no matter how you splice or dice this activity. So you have a certain amount of existing activity that's on there, or of development that's on there, that can't be exceeded, and you have a primary structure that can't exceed 4,000, which we have accepted that we won't at 3250. Again, I cannot stress enough that there is no, I mean, this is just something that's in the land use code. We have no desire moving forward to redevelop anything, but that's where I'm coming of existing square footage is 5670.
I'm good. You can move on.
Cliff?
Boy, that last conversation only brought up another quick question. I understood from what I've read in the packet and what you all are saying is that the 3,860 square feet will be, it already exists, and then they're going to add on another 3,250 plus 1,750. Are you tearing down all the old buildings? Somebody just simply give me the answer. All these buildings that total
No.
3,860.
We have no plans to tear anything down, but as I just pointed out, there's 3,860 in outbuildings. We'll call those the things in the corner, the barn, the cabin, as they're labeled on the survey, which is not an accurate label. I mean, maybe that's what they look like, but then you have a 960 square foot, thank you, Leslie, 960 foot garage. And one thing that I pointed out is Leslie, when we were talking about these numbers, she asked me for the garage, and I had previously provided the area of the cabin, so I didn't do that again, but which wasn't captured here. So there is 850 square feet. And I saw everybody looking at their pen and paper. That adds up to 5670, if I can add correctly. And that's existing development today. There's nothing else. we're always limited to 5750, no matter how you cut it. So there's no request or no desire to go over 5750. And we're actually voluntarily limiting the house size to 3250 of the primary residence, but you would still have the ability to develop 5,750 square feet of floor area in a caretaker dwelling unit or accessory structures.
In addition to these cabins, barns, and what have you?
No,
Okay,
if you wanted to go to 5750, you would have to rejigger the existing floor area that's out there.
Okay. So even in the future, under future site review, total is 5750, and you're limiting that to two structures, one 3250 and one 1750.
You have 1750 of available in accessory structures. The principal residence, the principal structure is limited to 4,000. So you have 4,000 house and then 1750 of accessory structures, which could be a CDU, could be outbuildings, could be something else, but you have a hard line where there's no 9,000 square feet that's getting developed on this parcel ever.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
And I just want to add, Cliff, that even though the frying pan overlay says the final maximum for your principal structures is 4,000, this application is limiting it to 3,250, because that's what that limitation gets them, that third TDR. However, one could propose an ag operation on the property, and one could build a ag exempt building according to the TDR section of the code.
But not under the LDCP.
And I thought the open space was going to be turned over to open space and trails. So even if there were ag, it wouldn't be associated with the applicant. It would be associated with open space and trails, wouldn't it?
No,
Well,
they're proposing, and so the way Open Space and Trails likes to do this is they like to do an easement on the entire property, and then you carve out the activity envelopes out of that easement, and then there's a variety of uses that can be allowed on the property, even with the conservation easement.
And we have technically run cattle on it historically, so that might be a component of the conservation.
Suzanne Caskey.
Yes. Jeffrey, before we go any further, I want to apologize to you for the language I used in characterizing your concerns. Since, as we've continued with this conversation, I understand more clearly what your concerns have been. And despite that, I should thank you for being thorough, and should not have called it what I did.
Thank you. Cliff? Thank you. Everything is, hopefully everything's just based on land use code, and I'm just asking the applicant and staff and saying, hey guys, I love a conservation, a LDCP, whatever it's called. I'm for it. It's a question of, do you meet the code as of 2006 in terms of the language that's there that we're guided by? And that's strictly it. There's nothing more than does it meet the qualifications in the book sitting next to me. So does the parcel meet, those requirements for the 2 TDRs, and then does the diminution or the reduction in square footage for the house warrant the issuance of a 3rd TDR? So I think, Cliff, you had your hand up.
No, I had asked my question.
Any further commissioner questions or comments for either staff or the applicant? And Stan, thank you for joining us. Apologies, we can't shake hands and be in that lovely room that POS designed.
Jeffrey,
Suzanne, or sorry, Cindy, Leslie.
I just wanted to note that I received your corrections of language in the reso, and I will make corrections before the reso moves forward to the BOCC. If there, I know there are those corrections that you want to make, so.
Yeah, and just, and sort of going back to Suzanne's comments, Suzanne Caskey, I still don't believe the application meets the requirements for a TDR for the reduction in square footage for the house from 4,000 to 2,500. I don't know why we're issuing a TDR when we've already put an overlay in place that sort of caps home size. And so given there's only one resolution with recitals, I would be inclined to vote against it, even though clearly, the conservation makes, absolute sense. But I don't believe the issuance of the third TDR is warranted, again, based on a reduction in square footage of 750 square feet. The code says 2,500 is the reduction. So, and again, I'm happy to be challenging that professionally, if anyone has thoughts, or again, if I'm misreading.
I fully understand now why you're saying that and where your leanings come from, even though I continue to disagree with them, but I understand what you're saying.
Thank you. Do we have a motion
Well,
at this point?
I have one more question.
Cliff.
Sorry. I forgot, got distracted by the other thing. In looking at the Frying Pan Valley Master Plan, there's a comment here about gross floor area for principal structure below grade space shall be limited to 4,000 square feet. So I read that to be on top of anything that could be built above grade. They can build up to 4,000 feet below grade. Am I reading this correctly? Basement.
So, including all below grade space and attached accessory structures shall be limited to 4,000 square feet. Was that your question, Cliff?
Yeah, I'm looking at the packet versus what you just put up in front of me. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So it includes everything. And if they want to attach a CDU to that, that will be part of the 3250 because they're limiting to 3250 for the one structure.
Okay.
Sorry, Patrick, thank you.
I just wanted to ask, what are the changes that Jeffrey has proposed in the reso, the draft reso?
So they were strictly language.
Just clarification.
Yeah, in the resolution, we need to add the word plan.
Oh, okay. It's
totally minutia.
Okay, fine. I just wanted to know if they were substantive changes.
And if the P&Z is inclined, I would also add in the resolution the proposal for the Lime Creek fishing easement.
So,
Leslie, let me verify. So there's the minutia adjustment to in wording. There's the addition of the fishing easement, and the TDRs that would be granted are recommended to be 3, right?
Yes, the 3 are in the resolution.
Okay. Unless there's additional questions, which I'm certainly open to listening to, I would make a motion to approve the resolution subject to those 3 proposed resolutions that Leslie and I just outlined.
Recitals.
in the recitals. Yeah.
We have a
Second
first.
motion.
Joe is a second. Joe Kraybacher, I hear a second.
That's not affirm, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? At this point, we have a first and a second for further questions or comments for staff or the applicant. Any hands? No hands? At this point, we have a resolution of the Planning and Zoning Commission of Pitkin County, Colorado, approving the Deerhammer rezoning special use review for a limited development conservation parcel and activity envelope and site plan, and certifying the zoning plan to the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County, Colorado. In the motion, Chelsea outlined that there was the addition of the Lime Creek fishing easement, and the word master plan was an update to the language within the draft on page 115. I'm just going to go down the list in Zoom order. Chelsea Clark,
I vote yes.
Cliff Weiss,
Yes.
Joe Kraybacher,
I think I'm gonna vote no against my second. No, just kidding. I vote yes.
Don't give me a heart attack.
Joe, what are you doing? Funny man.
Monty Thompson,
Yes.
okay, and Jeffrey Woodruff is a no. The motion passes 4-1 in favor of the application.
Forgot to call Suzanne Caskey.
Sorry, Suzanne Caskey, I apologize.
And Monty Thompson.
I vote yes.
And Monty was a yes.
Yes, I was a yes.
So the motion passes 5-1.
There you go.
Did I miss anyone else? Sorry, it's hard between the tiles in Zoom and the panelists on the right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Patrick, thank you for your time and for the application. And
Yeah.
thank you to Stanley for his work in conserving the frying pan. So much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Deerhammer, and to Stan and to staff. I thought it was a very well presented proposal.
Thank you.
Anything further at this time? Motion to adjourn?
Let's adjourn.
Excellent. Enjoy your evening. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. Thanks, everyone.